The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try.
Welcome to my show. This is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Our special guest on Zoom is Fred Henner, a children's songwriter, singer. Welcome to my show, Fred.
Hello, Patty. Thank you for inviting me.
And how are you? How's the weather out there?
It's beautiful. We live on the west coast of Canada on Vancouver Island. My wife and I, we bought a property here a couple of years ago, and we have a little half acre of green that we are the stewards of, that we take care of and grow things. And it's a beautiful part of the world. And today is bright and sunny again. It's been very hot for a long time. We had a little bit of rain recently, but it's pretty hot right now.
I understand you've had heat waves over there.
There have been some very intense, like up to, well, in Canadian terms, pushing 40. So that's well over 100 in the Fahrenheit world. And it's caused, as you know, all the way down the west coast from California all the way up. It's been very, very intense, and a lot of forest fires. And
you're not near that, are you?
No, that's primarily in the interior of British Columbia. But there's 300 fires apparently burning now.
Wow, that's not good.
No, and whole villages have been swallowed up by the fire, literally.
Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, on November the 6th, 1946. On St. Anne's Road, number 5 St. Anne's was the address of the house that we were living in.
You were born in a house, not hospital?
No, I was born in a hospital. I was born in the St. Boniface Hospital, which was only 5 minutes away from the house, but that was the home that my family was in when I was born. But St. Boniface Hospital was my birthplace.
And what did your folks do? What professions were they in?
That's interesting. My parents were both raised in southern Manitoba from Mennonite farming communities. So they were both raised on the farm. My mom never had an official occupation, or not one that you would. She was a homemaker. My dad was in
work.
Well, exactly. My dad was in the Canadian Armed Forces. He was in the Army, the Royal Canadian Engineers, mainly in the clerical side. He had very good penmanship. He was good in math. Anyway, so he worked in the Army for almost 20 years. My mom had, because she did not, homemaker was not a good enough title for her. So she would call herself a domestic engineer.
You bet.
And there is, that apparently is an actual thing. So she had written that onto income tax form, and there's a magazine called The Domestic Engineer that she received, monthly copies of from there. But that was those were their jobs for their lives.
You have any brothers, sisters?
Yeah, I have older brother and sister, 9 and 10 years. My sister is 10 years older. My brother is 9 years older. And I have a younger brother who's about 8 years younger than I. And I had a sister who was born with Down syndrome.
Oh, my.
And she passed away in my 20s.
Oh,
That's another story.
she must have been a gem.
Oh, she was incredible. I learned,
So much.
I learned a huge amount about the respect for music and what it is capable of creating inside of a human spirit. But she was a gem of a human being, and I loved her a lot, and we shared a lot. So there were 5 in our family. I was the middle child.
I have 2 other sisters and 1 brother.
Okay.
And I have a twin
Do you?
sister, Jerry. Colleen, my younger younger sister. That's a good Irish name now.
You're right.
You were quite the young lad when you started to sing. How old were you?
Music was in me from the beginning. My mom, who is certainly since passed, about 15 years now, she would talk about me singing songs while I was on a bus.
Oh.
One of her early memories of me, we were crossing over the Assiniboine River. There's 2 rivers in Winnipeg, the Assiniboine and the Red River form.
I know the Red River.
Yeah, so the 2, Assiniboine is east-west, Red River is north-south, and where the rivers joined, Winnipeg was built. And apparently once upon a time we were on a bus crossing over the Assiniboine River, and I started singing, "Cruising down the river on a Sunday afternoon," an old 1890s song, but somehow it was in my brain. I guess I heard somebody sing it, and I was only.
You have a good voice.
4.
You have a very good voice, sir.
Oh, thank you.
So, when you were growing up, what musical instruments did you play?
My family had a piano. So that was the first instrument that I learned anything on. I'd pick out little melodies. My older sister taught me, some of the basic, songs that are good for duet, like Heart and Soul and Chopsticks with the 1 finger. So I learned about that instrument, seeing how that music came out of that thing. And my older brother's wife, her name is Frances, and she's a very, very fine musician. And we had a chord organ, like an upright accordion at home as well. And she taught me a lot of really, really interesting patterns, how to play the buttons on the left hand and the melodies on the right, as you would with an accordion. But it gave me a much deeper understanding about chord form and how melody fits in with that. But those were the 2 instruments that were critical in my early days, for sure.
When did you learn the guitar?
Not till I was 15. I was the best man in my brother's wedding, and he was married in Pelly, Saskatchewan, which is not far from Yorkton, and there's a little town called Pelly in Kamsack, and we went there when I was 15. As I said, I was best man, and we had the Frances, my sister-in-law, was raised on a Russian Doukhobor farm in that part of the world. Very, very beautiful, interesting people. And we were having a meal in their prairie kitchen one day with the family, our family and their family. And I was sitting down, I'm looking around, seeing this big, gorgeous kitchen with this huge old stove and all the things they had. And on the back of the door was a guitar. And I'd never seen a guitar before because we didn't have that at home, up close. And so I looked at this and it touched me immediately. So I said to Frances's dad, Bill, I said, can I touch the guitar? He said, "Oh, that old thing, you can have it."
Oh,
I was aghast. Have a guitar, and it was a terrible, terrible guitar. It was called a Stella. That was the make of it, and it had a very, very thin neck and terrible action. It was almost impossible to play in the condition it was in. But I took it and I learned some chords on it and I changed the strings, but that was my first guitar at 15 years old.
and when did you start singing, like in choirs or pageants or whatever?
Yeah, that was the beginning of my really of my musical appreciation, other than piano and chord organ. Grade 3, I was in. I had a really good ear and a good voice, so I gravitated to choirs in grade 3 all the way through junior high school, university, and many different types of choirs, madrigal choirs, mixed choirs, male choirs. It was any musical thing I could find, I would gravitate to.
So when did you start doing children's songs? When did you solo?
Yeah, that wasn't until much later, because I had all these great musical influences from my family, the classical and swing music from my parents, the early rock and roll and boy bands from my older brother and sister, and then the folk music of the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
That I was.
You weren't a flower child, were you?
Oh, you betcha. I had the braids, I had the headband.
Oh, my goodness.
I was a hippie and proud of it, Patty. Proud of it. Exactly. Yeah. So all of those musical influences were inside of me, and learning those songs from the 60s, the musical participation, because they all had great choruses. I mean, Joni Mitchell and Gordon Lightfoot and Cat Stevens and James Taylor. Those were songs that you could really participate in. So later in my career, after experimenting with lots of theater, a number of road bands, playing universities, playing the bar circuit, pretty intense world of musical exploring there. But it wasn't until later in the 70s when I started focusing on children's music, and there were many influences that led that direction.
So what was the reason why you went into doing children's?
It came from
your sister?
Well, Susie was certainly a huge influence, as I said, of understanding how deeply a child can be affected by music, how humanity, everybody can be affected by musical pattern and sound. So I set that as my sort of template almost for understanding music. I worked with special needs children in Winnipeg, physically, mentally challenged, behavior problem kids. Again, music was just part of my interaction with them.
Therapy?
Sorry?
Therapy?
Yeah, it was therapeutic. I didn't think of it certainly in those terms at that time, but in retrospect, it absolutely was therapeutic for the child and for me. I mean, we would sing songs together, quite simply, and then I was in a road band called Cornstalk that toured from Toronto to Calgary. Was our provincial.
I'm trying to remember that.
Kornstock. There's some interesting stuff on the internet. If you go to do a Google one, Cornstalk, that opens up something. But we performed in the mid 70s, 73 to 77. And then the band sort of reached a logical conclusion in 77. And I met my future wife, now my ex-wife, in Toronto. That's another story. In Toronto, when she was coming to Winnipeg to study modern dance, and she was following that career path which led to starting a children's dance theater company called Sundance, where she would choreograph, I wrote music, and we performed programs for family audiences, for children in the school system and at theaters in Winnipeg. So that led to doing my first recording of The Cat Came Back.
Oh, I like to hear that. Got a minute?
You could touch on that one.
Yeah.
Want to hear that now?
Yeah. My favorite, you know.
Well, it's a classic old tune. And this song was written in 1894. So it's an old tune that I've adapted and added multiple verses to in my time. I've sung it in every concert since 1979.
Oh.
The cat came back the very next day. The cat came back. They thought he was a goner, but the cat came back. He just couldn't stay away. Now old Mrs. Hunter had troubles of her own. She had a yellow cat who wouldn't leave her home. Tried and she tried to give the cat away. Gave it to a man going far, far away. But the cat came back the very next day. The cat came back. They thought he was a goner, but the cat came back. He just couldn't stay away. Gave it to a man going up in a balloon. Told him for to take it to the man in the moon. Balloon came down about 90 miles away. Where the man is now? Well, I dare not say. But the cat came back the very next day. The cat came back. They thought he was a goner, but the cat came back. He just couldn't stay away.
Wowzer. Very good, kiddo. So, you've been in TV, films.
Yep.
Name quite a few for me.
The films you wouldn't know. I mean, my TV world had a number of specials, you know, Canadian primarily, but my TV series, Fred Penner's Place, ran for almost 1,000 episodes from 1985 to 97. So 13 years of television work. And it aired in the US for 3 years, 89 to 92 on Nick Jr., on Nickelodeon.
Was it on every day?
Yep.
Oh, wow. That's why. Because I'm 13, going on 13 years, and I have almost 600 shows.
Oh, my. Oh, good for you. That's a good chunk of time.
You bet.
13, yeah.
No, make that 12. I lied.
Okay. Close enough. Okay. Yeah, so those the film side, I didn't. There were a couple of local films that I did, but the TV world was my main visibility to the audience.
Tell me about Fred Penner's Place. Tell me more about it. What was it about then?
Sure. It was a godsend for me. Mm-hmm. In after doing my first album, The Cat Came Back, it was picked up by Raffi's company in Toronto.
Ah.
And I worked with him and his company for 5 years. And they produced 3 more albums for me. Mm-hmm. And I was touring, extensively across Canada, dipping into the States a little bit, mostly Canadian work then. Mm-hmm. And unbeknownst to me, CBC, who had been following my career, had been going to the festivals that were prolific in Canada, children's festivals that grew out of that post-war generation. The boomers really wanted some quality entertainment, so these festivals were sort of created to satisfy that demand. But CBC was following my career, as unbeknownst to me, as I said. Mm-hmm. And after 5 years, they called me up out of the blue, and Dodie Robb was the head of children's television then, and she asked me if I wanted to do a TV series. And it was, oh, really? How does that work? And she said, well, we've been following your career. We're looking for a replacement for another program called The Friendly Giant.
Oh, I saw that when I was a
yeah, of course you did. We all did. And they were looking to, to change direction there. And I said, how do I do this? What do you need from me? And she said, what would you like to do? What is your druther if you were able to do a series? And so I did my soul searching as I've done in much of my career when I've had a challenge that's, put to me, especially in the world of family, of children's entertainment. I go back to how I felt as a child, to things that were influences to me when I was younger.
Yeah.
And that's what I did with Fred Penner's Place. I went back to
simple,
to the simplicity, to feelings that really touched me deeply. And I brought many of those forward to create the template for Fred Penner's Place, which was a natural environment. You would see me in the opening running across a field, pointing out a fence or a rock or a tree or something, ultimately getting to this hollow log that was covered by branches. So not anybody could see it. I knew where it was. Mm-hmm. And I would lift up these branches. I would crawl into the log. That was the opening. And then every program, mm-hmm. see me crawling out the other side of the log into my play area.
Ah.
And it was a beautiful, like a rainforest kind of environment with moss and trees and ledge.
Animals?
Not a few. There was a bird called the word bird, who was just a talker, but the word bird would have a word on a piece of paper.
I think I've seen that.
Oh, you may have. And again, there's episodes of that on YouTube.
Oh my stars!
So there were a series of characters, and I had some puppet friends who joined in. Lots of live guests who dropped by. Mostly Canadian performers. A couple of American along the way, like Tom Chapin.
Oh,
if you know Dear Tom, do you know Tom?
I heard of him.
He's just one of the nicest people I've ever met, and one of the finest songwriters for children's tunes I've ever met. Anyway, Tom came on my program. Mr. Dressup was on Fred Penner's Place. So we had a very beautiful, eclectic range of guests, and it was very popular. People enjoyed the show and still enjoy the show today, really.
Have you won awards?
Many. I've won. I mean, there's countless from SOCAN, which is the music publishing branch in Canada. I won Best Children's Songwriter for year after year after year. Mm-hmm. I've won 4 Juno Awards, which is the Canadian equivalent of Grammy.
Yeah,
4 of those. I've Parents' Choice Awards. I have 2 honorary doctorates. I have the Order of Canada, which is thank you so much. The Order of Manitoba, pretty prestigious awards along the way. Yeah, after being in the business for 45 years, people have followed my career. I've paid my dues, Patty.
Oh my goodness. Now you can relax. Do what you want. Oh my goodness. So, how many songs, CDs have you done in the whole?
Oh, yeah. I've recorded 13 CDs.
13 CDs.
13 CDs that are out there somewhere.
Good, lucky number.
Exactly. I like the number.
Mm.
And my latest one was called Hear the Music. And it won a Canadian Juno Award, a Canadian Folk Music Award, and the Western Canadian Award for Best Children's Album.
Wow, I'm proud of you, man.
It's a beautiful album. You know, if you get a chance to listen to it, it's I was very pleased to do that because it involved a dozen, Canadian artists, not children's artists, but performers who had grown up with me, and were very honored to participate in this album.
Cool.
So people like Ron Sexsmith or Good Lovelies and Alex Cuba, you may know that name.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was very eclectic.
You have a website?
FredPenner.com.
Oh, right. How sweet.
Yeah.
Simple and sweet. What would you like to say to my audience?
So the message to all of you is never underestimate your ability to make a difference in the life of a child. No matter how you do that, it doesn't have to be through music, but we all have that opportunity to make a difference in a child's existence, to help them learn, to figure out ideas, to give them the tools of compassion, of understanding, of humanity, just the values that we as adults hopefully hold dear. You can pass those on to the children around you so that they grow up with a real, again, compassion for humanity. Mm-hmm. So it seems to be lacking a lot right now.
I notice.
I would like to end with a song, though, if I may.
All right.
Do we have time for that?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Well, at the end of every Fred Penner's Place episode, I wrote a song which I ended every show with, and it as I tell the audiences, because I still do it in performance, I tell the audiences about the song, and I say, this is the most important song I'm going to share with you. Take good care of each other. That's what friends like to do. Let your sister and brother help you learn that it's true. We all need to feel wanted for the people who we are. So take good care. Take good care. Take good care. Take good care of each other.
Yay! Right.
That's the message. That's the message that I'm sending to your audience. Take good care of each other. We're all in this insane world together. And if we don't take care of each other, then we are doomed.
Yeah. This is Patty Hunter saying, thank you, Mr. Penner. Fred, you're an angel.
Oh, you're a people. Thanks to all. Thank you.
So I'll see you next week, people, and hope you have a good week. Thank you. God bless.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us always for the rest of all our